Headlines from an African perspective.
And now we tell you about a British-based aid group, Save the Children, warning that at least 4 African countries will run out of specialized life-saving food for severely malnourished children in the next 3 months. The organization says this is due to shortages caused by aid cuts, which have left supplies dangerously low in countries such as Nigeria, Kenya, Somalia, and South Sudan. Among the items most needed are high-energy biscuits, based Plumpy'Nut paste, and other known treatments as ready-to-use therapeutic food. For more on this, we speak to Save the Children's East and Southern Africa Regional Director Yvonne Arunga, who joins us from Kenya. Yvonne, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. 4 countries. How many people are we looking at who are in danger of severe malnutrition?
Well, thanks for having me this evening. Well, we're talking about big populations, and it varies across the 4 countries that we've mentioned. So the most affected by the situation where there's shortages in RUTF is Nigeria, South Sudan, Somalia, and Kenya. So in Nigeria, for instance, we have 3.5 million children at risk, and we only have less than 64% of RUTF supplies secured. In Kenya, the stocks that we have ran out in October. And in Somalia, we are looking at 1.8 million children at risk. And in Somalia, we have less than 40% of the RUTF supplies secured. In South Sudan, we are talking about 714,000 children at risk and 15% of nutrition facilities closed. And these are just a subset of the countries affected. So if you look across the countries that we work in, including where we have major humanitarian situations like Sudan, etc., then the issue is severe.
And that's what I was thinking when you were giving out the figures now, that you speak of about 3.5 million children in Nigeria. Now, is that relative to population? Because we know Nigeria does have a large population compared, obviously, to the Sudan. Given the fact that the Sudan, there have been warnings for months of malnutrition because of the conflict, various reasons as well, and of course the collapse of health systems there.
Right, yes, so 3.5 million is the number of children affected in North and Northeast Nigeria. And I'm sure you'd agree with me that 3.5 million, irrespective of the base population size, is quite a big number of children to be facing, or to be, facing severe acute malnutrition.
No, absolutely. And this is why I'm surprised, because, as I say, given the ongoing conflict in the Sudan, one would have thought that the number there would have been larger. So I'm quite surprised to hear of this huge number in Nigeria.
Well, South Sudan is the one that talked about 714,000 children. I haven't given figures for Sudan. Sudan is actually, because of the conflict in the country, has much higher numbers. I don't have the numbers off the top of my fingers for now. The figures that I was speaking to are the children that are under risk because of lack of access to the, therapeutic food, the RUTF.
Okay, so I think we are agreeing. Perhaps maybe you weren't quite understanding what I was saying, but I'm expressing surprise, obviously, because it's a very worrying situation. And we speak about the, official government aid that countries would ordinarily receive to mitigate some of these circumstances. So what is Save the Children hoping to do to mobilize for more funding from other sources? What remedies can be applied in the immediate term?
So to put it in context, maybe I'll speak to our broader work. So Save the Children, and in collaboration with local partners and in many instances with governments as well, across several countries, provides nutrition, clean water, health services, protection services to children and their communities. And usually we're working in communities that for a multitude of reasons are most cut off from basic services. And therefore placing a very big burden on families and children and leaving them at heightened risk of illness and hunger, exploitation, and preventable deaths. Now, with the recent cuts in aid funding, virtually all those sectors are affected. So let's, for instance, speak to nutrition, which is what we were, talking about, the therapeutic food and other interventions around nutrition. When children who, are undergoing, severe acute malnutrition do not have access to this RUTF, then their lives are actually under threat. And we know for a fact, of course, that children who are severely under malnutrition are also very, very vulnerable to other illnesses. And then not to speak to, of course, the issue about, the resourcing of our health work. There's been closure of clinics, and there's been also an impact on, health personnel or being able to fund our stabilization centers or, the provision of medicines and the like. So that has been also a real frustration for communities and also, again, making a bad situation worse. Then let's speak to education. Yeah, in very many places where we work, for instance, like in refugee camps, we run educational facilities. With the cuts in aid, those have had to be scaled back. And as you can imagine, you withhold or if children have no access to education, that hampers, their potential, and therefore has a lifelong effect. Not to speak of the protective effects that school have. So when children are in school, in quite a number of instances, they are safer. And then the clean water situation or even access to water itself, when that's hampered, children and their families have to go to great lengths to secure that. And in the process of this, there's also protection risks, particularly for the girl children, on whom quite a lot of this burden falls. So these are just some of the ways in which communities are feeling the cuts in humanitarian aid.
And I'm sure this is something we'll continue to speak about as we end the year, because it's a serious situation growing even grimmer by the day in some countries. Thank you very much for your time. Save the Children East and Southern Africa Regional Director Yvonne Arunga.
Thank you.